We are in week 2 over at Saratoga, and this is going to be a fantastic weekend of racing coming up. It is Wednesday, July the 17th. I am Gino Bacola, alongside my good friend Barry Spears, the sniper. We are getting ready to set you up for Saratoga's Saturday late pick 5, a pick 5 that will include a couple graded stakes races. We will see one of the best horses in training show up in the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks with your Kentucky Oaks winner Torpedo Anna. Barry, we're also going to have Del Mar open up this weekend on Saturday, July the 20th. We're going to have the Haskell from Monmouth Park and a big stakes Saturday over there. It's also the King's Plate Trial and the Woodbine Oaks this weekend at Woodbine. This is a huge, huge weekend, in particular Saturday. I'm really excited to be talking with you about the Saratoga late pick 5. And then I think you and I are going to come back and talk a little Del Mar later in the week too.
Oh man, this is it, man. This is what
We're
we
rolling
live
now.
for. Yeah. Saratoga's underway. This is week 2. Del Mar starting this week. I mean, as a horse player, this is the pinnacle. This is what we live for.
Remember, Saratoga handicapping store all throughout the meet. There's going to be a Del Mar handicapping store as well, where you can get past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports every day, then betting strategies on the big days, on the weekends, on Saturdays. So shop.drf.com for everything you need. Don't forget, the DRF YouTube channel is also excellent. They'll preview each race individually for you, throw some replays in there, the Timeform US pace projector. I've been jumping in there a little more recently. I just previewed actually a couple of the races that you and I are going to talk about here with David up on the YouTube channel individually. So if you ever need a little help there, Dan Illman does a great job holding down the fort. He is one of the sharper guys that, flies under the radar, because if you're not watching on the DRF YouTube all the time, you're not seeing him on TV or you're not seeing him around. He is so smooth and eloquent
he's very
with
flawless
the way
with his delivery.
And just working with him, it's like boom, boom, quick in, sets you up perfect. Just a fantastic host, a true professional. So he'll get you set up for all the big races all throughout the week. DRF YouTube, check out the daily racing forum over there. Barry, buddy, let's talk about the late pick 5 that starts in race number 8. Oh, we have to give a little bit of a shout out too. You and I were talking about this before we started recording. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Chuck Simon doing very well right now. We've heard the reports. So going, things can change when you're sick. It can go good, bad real quickly, especially go bad. But every time we check in with someone and there's a good report, we have to feel really good about that. So I know your partner in crime and your buddy doing very well. And I think you're going to get a chance to see him pretty soon, right?
Yep. Going up there 4-Star Dave weekend. So definitely going to touch base with him and hang out and see how he's doing, see the track. I haven't been up there in a couple of years. So it should be a good time, as long as everything stays positive. I think we're going to be okay, man.
Okay, Chuck, so we gave you a shout out here. Now we need some positive energy from you to give us a little bit of luck.
A couple winners.
To give us a little bit of luck here in this pick 5 sequence. So help steer us in the right direction a couple times as we get ready for race number 8. So we're going to kick things off with an optional claimer, non-winners of 2. They're going 7 furlongs on the dirt. These are a lot of horses that are not quite your stakes horses, just a little below. And from a gambling standpoint, we have a stakes quality horse in Federal Judge, who was 4th in the Grade 1 Woody Stevens behind Arabian Lion and Drew's Gold. And he actually beat some very nice horses in his first couple starts. In start number 1 at Oaklawn Park, he defeated 4 next out winners. The 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place finishers all came back to win their next starts, including Federal Judge. There was 5 altogether in that race, top 5 finishers. Then he comes back, and in his second start, he beats a really nice horse named Extra Anejo, who at the time was very, very highly regarded. He won his career debut by 9.5 lengths, earned a 92 Beyer speed figure, and Federal Judge beat him. Now, the problem with Federal Judge is not the talent that he's shown. It's just we haven't seen him in now 13 months. He's first time gelding. He's going to come into the Brad Cox barn for the first time. And this does feel like kind of a soft starting point for him for the barn.
Sure. Yeah. This is definitely a soft spot for him, it's kind of curious that he's in this spot, to be honest with you, because I would think, just from a logic perspective and, how people think in this industry, that this wouldn't be the spot for a horse like this to come back in. It would be a ungraded stake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is definitely a soft spot. But I do have some reservations about that horse being in this spot. I know it's early in the meet, things like that, and he can definitely come back later on in a stake or something. But it's just kind of curious to me that he ended
Sometimes
up
it's
an
a little
optional claimer.
discouraging when
Yeah,
it feels like the barn is playing it safe. Like it sometimes it can kind of get you off a horse that they're not a little more ambitious with where they place a horse who looked to have real ability. I mean, even in that Woody Stevens finishing fourth that day, there was nothing wrong with that. And the numbers with Brad Cox with these like first time acquisitions are kind of insane. David Aragona was pointing out last week what's crazy is what you're hitting at. He's not good with horses coming into his barn when they go into stakes. He is really good first time after the trainer switch. When you look at the last 5 years, he's at 26%. 5 years, like over a 5-year
insane.
sample. It's massive. And when you go even less than that, like when you want to go to the time frame of just 1 year and see, the numbers are like overwhelming. 50%. He's 10 for his last 20.
Well,
With
that's the
with
thing is, like these stats that you're giving me and everything, everybody can see.
yeah.
So, when you can get around horses like Federal Judge in races like this, you're bound to make money, because
And you also
I
have to
personally like a horse in here. I like the 7 Arrow Smash quite a bit. I think this horse sets up perfectly for this horse. There's other speed to run with Federal Judge. They may not be fast enough, but they could be fast enough to get in his way, to slow him down enough for a horse like Arrow Smash to win.
to me, he's one of the more he's one of the horses with the higher ceiling in here.
Mm.
And I think he could be one of the better horses in this field, like along with Federal Judge. And he just doesn't have as much of the time off to deal with as Federal Judge does. He came back this year. He got the one race off the bench out of the way. And then since then, he raced in May. Following that, we have June and what's looked like maybe once or twice that he hasn't been able to put works together. But we still see a much more recent body of work from him than a horse like Federal Judge, who we haven't seen anything from since June of last year, of 2023. So comparing two horses that might be shortish prices in here, I also like the fact that Arrow Smash seems a little more versatile, right? He's not a need the lead horse. He won on the lead 2 starts back, but I think he's going to be sitting off here, right? Barry, you want him tracking in this spot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you want him in behind the leaders here. It looks like full screen will probably kind of be the thorn in Federal Judge's side, and possibly gun it. Probably
Yeah.
more definitely gun it. But I think there's enough to get in Federal Judge's way to open things up. But on paper, it seems like a 2-horse race between, Federal Judge and Arrow Smash to me. I could give a shot to full screen. That one's, could sit, but honestly, it looks like a 2-horse race.
So full screen, likely pace factor. The 2 Federal Judge who we were talking about down on the inside, first time gelding. I'd imagine they're just going to try to get aggressive with him like he's been. And Gun It also. The thing about Gun It that's interesting, like he can sit and pass horses. Just more recently, they've gone very quick up front. And they won one of those races in doing so. The other couple that he faded, but he does have a little versatility to him as well. But drawn to the outside of Federal Judge, I'd imagine they're going to push. There's one horse I want to mention that you didn't mention that I'll probably throw into my my pick fives. That's the 5 Deer District. So he actually faced Federal Judge last year, and he finished third, and he wasn't that far behind Federal Judge. And when you just look at the running styles, you can understand why in races like that where Federal Judge will probably beat him by a couple lengths, because Federal Judge is just a little bit faster early and can kind of make his own race at these distances. At the sprint distances, more like this, Deer District will be coming from off the pace a little bit more. But his last couple have been on the turf. They're fine. I'm looking at his races, though, last year where, He was right after the federal judge race. He comes back. He wins by 9.5, coming from off the pace at 6. Then the race following that at Saratoga, the grade 2 Amsterdam, where he runs into, rest in peace, New York Thunder, who was so good at that time. So he got a good effort over the track here. He's run well. And then following that, he just never got involved at Gulfstream Park in his first start of the year. And that was the first start off a long layoff. He tried turf the last couple times. Now, like second start back, there's races that he can get to that'll be right there with this group. It just, does he still have those in him? Can he round back into form? Does he get that trip? I don't want to take any shorter than this on him. Like, to me, he feels like a nice 6-1 shot, like 6-8. So if he was 5 or below, that would be a little bit short. But I think he'll run well in here, Barry. Again, it all comes down to the race shape as well, because he does need a little pace to run at. That's the 5 Deer District, second start off the bench for Romans. So, and Costa Terra, we didn't really mention him much. He adds the blinkers. He's kind of difficult to get a read on because he was running really well, and then he's tailed off form. And now, what's kind of crazy about him, his 2 wins are at 5 furlongs and 1.25 miles. You don't see that very often, yeah. So I just don't know what to expect from him on the big cut.
One thing, speaking of Chuck Simon, one thing that he has taught me, and one thing that I definitely caught with him saying it, he said one of the most difficult things to do is a horse to go long and then cut back to a sprint and win. And that's kind of what Costa Terra is doing. It's not impossible, but that's really difficult to cut back from 1.25 miles into a 7 furlong race. That's real difficult. That's why I didn't really like that horse. Full Screen is another one that under ideal circumstances, that horse might be better in a spot like this, but he hasn't won since 2022, and that's a little concerning, and really hasn't come close other than one time, and
they're at the level, right? And what's hard too is when you see a horse that's been at the similar spot over and over. Like his last 6 to 7 races, they're all comparable spots, and some of them are very nice races, just no wins. He's kind of like a measuring stick at this level, right? Like you feel like he's probably going to run third at least in here, and if nobody runs really well and shows up with a good performance, he could be a little bit better. But if we get the 7 or the 2 or one of these horses showing up with a real good performance, he's probably just an underneath horse.
Yeah, because if you look at his past performance, his first race this year, March 16th, he's an optional claimer 25 at Gulfstream. And at that point, the meat is kind of thinned out, and he didn't even run a step. Then they went back to, 62,000, and he ran good at Aqueduct. And then at Saratoga during the Belmont little meet there, just didn't show up. He's very inconsistent. He's hard to take at this spot, but I just want him to get in front or kind of give Federal Judge a little bit of trouble early. That would be ideal, because I do like Arrow Smash quite a bit here.
Here's a look at race number 8 on Saturday at Saratoga, Saturday, July the 20th. Let's move along to race number 9. Oh, I got to give a shout out too. I just thought about this. My mom and dad's anniversary is on July 20th, on Saturday. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for me being around. Much appreciated. Actually, I'm sure I've told the story a billion times, but my mom and dad met each other at Santa Anita. My mom sold the digest at Santa Anita, and my dad was a general contractor. So he would go into track every day, and he would see her, and he would flirt with her, and he'd like ask her out on a date. She kind of roll her eyes most of the time. And then there was one day where they my dad and my grandpa owned a horse they'd been waiting for a long time to run back, and the horse had like a troubled trip, and they were expecting him to run big, and they bet a bunch of money on him, and my dad went and bet 50 to win on the horse and gave it to my mom, and the horse won that day, and he was like a big price. I think it was like 25 or 30 to 1, and so thankfully that happened for me, because they were able to go out on a date later, and so the rest is history. So happy anniversary!
That's beautiful. Happy anniversary,
Mom and Dad, on Saturday. As we move to race number 9, second leg of the pick 5. This one kicks off your late pick 4 sequence, 1 1/8 on the Mellon turf course here. We'll have the 2 Major Dude, who's going to make his second start back as a 4-year-old. He was really sharp at the beginning of last year, and then I think as he faced a little bit tougher he found the groups once he got into the Web Slingers and Talk of the Nations and Silver Knot. Those are some nice horses, and they were just a tad step above him. He was like a real solid grade 2, grade 3 kind of horse, but when he faced some of those that are more like grade 1 types, it just seemed like he was a little below them. Baloney, he's in really nice form right now. He's put 3 in a row together that are just sharp. We have a Tone, and I think this has been a kind of a fascinating horse over the last couple of years, Barry, because he was never a grade 1 horse.
Never.
And then he won
the Pegasus.
grade 1 Pegasus. And
everybody wants to bet him.
He was like, oh, he's a grade 1, or he's a real legitimate graded stakes horse. But he really wasn't. That was a soft edition of the Pegasus that day. He was like 10-1 on the morning line. He got hammered, bet down to 7-2, and he was live, and he ran well, and he won. And he's not been consistent since then, but he's actually run some pretty good races. But we don't kind of think of it because he seems disappointing. This is actually a pretty good level for him, this spot. I'm not going to run to the windows and bet him, but as far as like fitting here class wise, this is just a lot better spot than most of the races he's been in between the Pegasus and now.
Yeah, this probably is a more favorable spot than he's been running. I mean, he even tried the synthetic down at Turfway one time, and ran pretty good behind Chellis that day. But, you know, I'm just off the Tone.
Yeah,
I was never on it. I mean, he beat me basically in the Pegasus that day because I didn't like him that day either. And he'll continue.
You've been pretty much vindicated since then. Like I was going to say, you lost your money that day, but you've saved a lot of money since then, the next 10 times he's run. So yeah, I'm not lining up, but I would not be shocked to see him run like he did last time. Again, hit the board in here. Like he fits with this class level way better than in a lot of those horses he was facing before.
It's 6 different riders in the last 6 races too.
And that always kind of tells you a little something too, doesn't it? You feel like someone, if they were really, I'm going to go with them to the next place, right?
I'll travel with them.
We got stuck, or there's more to this horse than was there, something like that.
He's 7. I think he's kind of winding down his career.
And is there that much speed in here?
No, and that's the thing. And I want to give Pioneering Spirit a big shot in this race for that reason. But this horse has been so inconsistent with his speed. I mean, I don't know which horse is going to show up, but it's almost, price is worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree. In a pick 4, pick 5, he's worth throwing in. I almost feel like that when you look at his running lines, it's hard not to think that with the match race that day, like took something out of him, because that's just a totally different dynamic of a horse race. When you get caught up in a match race and it's just you and one other horse and you got to do things a little bit differently, and he wins by 15, and then he's run a couple okay races, but that is just so different than everything else you do. If I like the fact that the Fort Marcy is on his page, that May 4th race, right? Because that's what you're hoping for. And those 2 horses that beat him that day, Masterpiece and Ottoman Fleet, if either one of those horses were in here, they would be
2 to 5.
heavily favored. Ottoman Fleet is in really nice form. He came back to win the grade 2 Wise Dan last time out at Churchill, and he earned 100 buyer speed figure in doing so. So yeah, I'm throwing him in for the same reasons that we're talking. I have to throw in the 9, Steady On.
Yes. Yeah.
With his outside draw, he's got to go from the outside. He ran on, he was in that same race with Major Dude and with the Tone. He ran basically exactly how you would expect.
Off the layoff, yeah.
Right? He wanted the lead early. They took him back a little bit so he wouldn't battle head on with Big Everest. And then he sat 3rd and 4th. He was down on the inside. He was just behind the leaders. He was traveling well. He moved up to 2nd. He took a shot, got a little bit tired, faded late. He might have been 2nd or 3rd best and just finished 4th that day. And I think he could take one of the bigger steps forward of anyone in here. 2nd start at 5 now off that long layoff. He had every right to get tired. And it's a Barry Spears type angle where he comes back off the long layoff and the speed figure he runs is pretty comparable with the ones he was running before he went to the bench.
Right. That's an awfully good sign. And also it's a Todd Pletcher angle too, because his horses dramatically improved second time out most of the time, even the ones that he's had for a while, not just the young ones. This horse is probably sitting on a really good race, and I would not leave that one out. Plus, he has Major Dude, who drew perfectly in a race
Yep.
like this. So it's going to be hard to get around
The Pletchers.
the two Pletchers
I
here.
think he
Yeah.
holds a really strong hand inside outside, and also because I think they'll complement each other. I feel like they'll let the 9 go, and Major Dude will be very happy sitting right
Yeah.
inside,
Yeah.
saving ground, sitting just behind the leaders. Both of them making their second start back. Like, yeah, they feel like really, really well spotted in here, both of those two. And you pointed out Pioneering Spirit. It's kind of a fun price play. I couldn't really get to any other bigger
Nope.
prices in here. I thought like those are my 1, 2, 3 that we had. Honestly, I had it 9, 2, 1 as my top 3 in here. And you and I will play something, and we'll probably use those 3 horses if we play a pick 5.
I'm down.
Let's get to the graded stakes portion. We have back-to-back graded stakes races coming up. First, the grade 3 Lake George. This one is a 3-year-old turf stakes for turf fillies. So I love these races like this, going about a mile to a mile and an eighth on the grass, young horses.
Mm-hmm.
You can find trips. These horses can improve quite a bit. The number 2, Oversubscribed. She's done nothing wrong. She's a closer. You know what you're going to get from her. That's the knock on her. She's just not fast early. So she'll spot the field a ton of lengths, and she'll have to come running late, but she will come running late. She has a ton of quality. The number 6, Sweet Rebecca, was really disappointing in the Wonder again. She was getting a great trip, and maybe she didn't want to go a mile and an eighth, but I was hoping for a little better finish, even if she didn't win that race. Then that one, she just really was a bit disappointing to me there. And then I think another horse who will take a good amount of money is the 3, Monima Gold. This filly, Barry, she was
overcharged.
Yeah, and she was supposed to run in the Kentucky Oaks. So we can take a look at her dam and see that her dam, Charged Cotton, was a 4-time winner on the turf. And she's also produced one of the best turf horses that we have training in the U.S. right now, Overcharged.
She's a full.
Yeah, full sibling to Overcharge. Thank you. And Overcharge is perfect on the turf and is a 15-time winner overall. So this is a horse who, coming into the race, the pattern and everything makes sense for her because she was supposed to run in the Kentucky Oaks, and then right before that, she had a little bit of an issue. You can see in her workout pattern that she had worked up to April the 26th and then nothing till May the 16th. So there's like 3 weeks there where there's a gap in between works. And that was right when she was getting ready to try to run in the Oaks. So think about that. She comes from Maydon. She has to deal with some of the quarantine and the shipping. Finally, when she gets ready to start getting ramped up, they got to stop on her. And then it's like they almost got to start all over again a few weeks later on May the 16th. And you see, so May the 16th, May the 24th, May the 31st, they get her ready for her June 6th race. She runs really well that day, Barry. She's sprinting.
Huge.
And she loses to a filly named Almost Gone Rocket. This horse is 3 for 3, undefeated, earned a 99 Beyer speed figure in winning that race. And Monima Gold was stumbled badly just after the start, was 4th, ends up moving up right into contention with the leaders at the top of the lane, and was just second best that day, was 3 lengths clear of 3rd. It was, to me, as perfect of a prep race to set this horse up to stretch back out as you could have asked for.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think this horse has a huge jump up, especially going to the turf. The horse should have a speed, be able to be placed wherever. I think that one might be tough in this spot, but I actually would want to take a shot with a horse at a bigger price.
Keep going
in this race. Number 1, Gavea.
I knew you were going
I like
there.
that horse a lot in this spot.
Yep.
A, because of the draw, and B, if you look at that race on October 27th, the Chelsea Flower, the horse, something went wrong really early, and they just kind of eased that horse around. If you put a line through that race in particular, this horse is right there anyway with everybody.
Yep.
I mean, I think 15 to 1 is a stretch. I don't think that's going to be the price. I would say more about 8, 9 to 1
That's
ish,
yeah, I think so too, and that's fair.
and that's perfect in
That's
this
fair
spot.
for her. And she's one that you just go through her 4 races. Very impressive debut winner at Chantilly in 2023. She comes back off the bench in her first start in the U.S. in September. She wins nicely. They step her up into a stakes race. As you said, something goes wrong. It wasn't like she finished 6th that day. She just was eased. Put
And
a
she was
line right
also
through it.
bet too. She was
Yeah,
only
she was
4 to
4-1,
1.
9-2 that day. And then off of that type of a layoff, she shows back up in the Regret, a race that she absolutely needs. And it was a good performance that day. She was forwardly placed. She was in the 2 paths. She was battling for the lead early. She backed off to sit second. She moved to the lead at the top of the lane. She held third. Now you come back second start after that 7-month break. She needs to improve a little bit. Why can't she? Why won't she?
Yeah, I think she's totally going to improve.
I do too. She's
I think she drew well. Um, all the signs point to this horse improving, and I think a little bit of improvement. It doesn't have to be even dramatic um, to win this race. I mean, oversubscribed is a nice horse. I saw this horse break the maiden at Tampa, uh, and I wasn't too impressed. And the horse obviously has improved since then. But man, to be a dead closer in a race like this, it's
yeah,
got to be tough to take at a short price.
completely agree with you. We have to put up our picks when we do the videos for DRF. I pegged this race 3-1.
Yeah,
As we
I
were
can see
talking
that.
about. I put
Yeah.
Monument Gold on top. I had oversubscribed in the second spot, and I have Gavia there as, to me, like the real interesting price in the race, because I think Monument Gold is going to get bet a little bit too, just because people know, like we know, she was coming into the Oaks. She probably should be maybe like 7-2 in here, just get bet a little bit.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like Gavia quite a bit in here, because to me, it was those 3 that I liked. And then afterwards, I think there are some other very honest horses, but I kind of see them like similar. Viva Vuve, she seems like a cut below this type of a group. Same thing with Galabrand. She's got no speed at all either.
Zero
Galabrand.
speed.
And so in this race, with not a whole lot of speed projected, that could be really bad. De Regresso, really love rooting for horses like this. I wouldn't mind using her underneath. She's sharp. She's in nice form, but she does feel like class-wise, she doesn't have the same type of ceiling as like a Monima Gold or an oversubscribed or even a Gavia down on the inside. If they were to kind of hit their ceiling, I don't know if she's as good as them, but
Well,
she's
you can
super
kind
honest.
of tell with De Regresso by the spots that this horse
They
has been
choose.
running in,
Yeah.
right? I think if that horse showed a lot more potential, they would stick to the grass more often. And it doesn't look like they kind of go back and forth. I know the horse has been at Gulfstream where, it's kind of slim pickings with the turf races there. Um, but you would think they would have kind of waited for a spot. But Pounce to me is interesting here. I think that one could get overlooked and has some versatility with her, and she could kind of be placed wherever she wants. Dylan Davis has really nice hands for a
When
jockey. Like
and if she
he
is 8-1, I'm completely fine with playing her at anything 6 and above, because that's the
yeah,
key. Is that her last few races have just been such an enigma that I don't want to take a shorter price on her like she's been in her last 2, but her ceiling is really high because of that Here Comes the Bride race. And I mean, it's one of those things as gamblers we remember, because I had Life's an Audible and Ozara, who were the short prices in that race, and both of them got like perfect trips. Pounce did not. Pounce came from way out of it,
way
came
out of
wide, and beat them both right on the money. And I'm okay excusing the Keeneland race. It was on a good turf course, sitting a little wide that day. Maybe just didn't like the course, put a line right through it. I would have liked to see a little bit more last time out, but she ran her race. The horses that beat her, like poolside with Slim, is solid. It's a nice horse who would be competitive in here.
it.
And I'm not going to get completely discouraged just because maybe she went a little bit down on a speed figure, or maybe that speed figure wasn't higher up there with her 90. I think she's very playable. in a pick 4, pick 5 situation, absolutely a horse I would have no problem throwing in.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is they're going to have Dylan Davis kind of rate this horse, and I think that might be the best thing, especially in this sort of race where this horse could really stalk a good trip from the outside. Because Lemon Muffin really, I don't really know what to do with that horse. Magic Cross is probably going to kind of gun it and try to get position early. So
I think it has to go from the outside too,
yeah,
right?
so I mean, I think this pace will be honest enough for a horse like Pounce to get a good spot, and whether she's good enough in the lane is another story. But I can't really discount that horse, especially if like you said, 6-1 or better. You definitely have to take a second look at that one.
Yep. That's what gambling's all about, is like you're looking at horses like this coming into her. Here comes the Bride win. Okay, she's value that day. She's a nice price. Then following that, she's just not value because people are playing her off that big win in back-to-back races. Now her form's a little more muddied up. She's playable again here. It reminds me a little bit of a horse that we're going to look at in the next race that you and I have kind of been on and off with Leslie's Rose.
Yes.
Where you look at Leslie's Rose, and this is the CCA Oaks, where she was a little disappointing in the Devona Dale when she was your heavy favorite. Then everybody kind of jumped off her, and she comes back in the Ashland and she wins at 9-1. But the problem is after the Ashland, she has the big win and she has, a little bit of hype going into the Oaks. She draws way to the outside. It's a sloppy track, and she just never had a shot, and she just didn't look like a good value play going into the Oaks with the draw coming off the big effort. But then last time, that was her spot, and she did run really well that day. She was just second best.
Just ran into a monster.
And you felt like that might have been the time that she could have turned the tables on Torpedo Anna. And so for me, when I look at her, I don't know if she can beat Torpedo Anna.
She can't. I don't think so. Not
in an uneven terms race,
right?
Unless something goes wrong. Like if the two of them are both running even sort of terms,
breakneck
nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
They're right next to each other, type thing. I do think that Leslie's Rose could be a little bit annoying in this race for Torpedo Anna, because if we watch their last race when Torpedo Anna was much better. This was on June the 7th. This was in the Acorn. And Torpedo Anna is the 9. Leslie's Rose is the 3. They're not far away from each other early, right? Leslie's Rose is there early. She's in a good spot. Torpedo Anna is there early. And Leslie's Rose, they kind of make the decision to sit off. In fact, going into the first turn, they're right next to each other. And now it comes down to, what are we going to do? Torpedo Anna can sit second, kind of keeps Leslie's Rose pinned in. I mean, they are on even terms here. And then Leslie's Rose gets shuffled back a little bit. Tactically, do you think Leslie's Rose will try to get in front of her this time?
You would think that would be the plan, but I just don't think that's possible. I think, honestly, I think Torpedo Anna is special.
Yeah, this is a very nice filly. She's made her 3.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen all kinds of things thrown at her. She's been able to overcome. The only time she didn't was in the Goldenrod, and lost.
She lost actually Intricate, who's in here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was a fluke because she didn't even come out of the gate very well that day. And
I mean, and
I
at that time,
fluky.
Intricate was fine, and Intricate had a good start to the year this year. But what happened coming out of the Fairgrounds Oaks? Intricate was 2-1 in the Fairgrounds Oaks. She had a good start in the Rachel Alexander. It was her first start of the year, and we all would figure she would take a step forward. But she had a bunch of mucus when they scoped her after the Fairground Oaks. So if you want to be a little forgiving for her for that race, and then say, you know what, she probably needed a race to get back to her best after those physical issues, I'm okay with giving her a chance in here. The problem is that even enough to compete with a horse like Torpedo Anna if she were to get back to a top effort,
maybe back then, back in 2023 when she did beat her. But now, to me, I don't think the horse has the chops to run with Torpedo Anna anymore.
No, and to me, the way Torpedo Anna gets beat and how she would get beat is if Leslie's Rose and her are going at it And then I think it could set up for the 1. To me, the 1, Candied, would be the horse that I would look at. The problem is, and I was talking about this with David when we looked at the race, like, I just don't think Candy's going to be a playable enough price if you're trying to take the shot against Torpedo Anna, looking for a price. I would want like 4-1 on this horse. On Candy.
There's no way that horse is going to be 4-1.
And that's the problem.
Leslie's Rose is not even going to be 5-1,
Yeah.
I think that inflates the price on Intricate. So if they decide tactically to do something different,
then it maybe
it's possible, but I just think Torpedo Anna is just too good for these horses.
Because that's the pace of the race is really what's key. Candied is a horse who, following along from last year, she was 5-2 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She had a brutal trip in the Juvenile Fillies. She ran a bang-up race that day. She was beaten only 3/4 of a length. She was really wide. And remember, just FYI, got a perfect trip in that Juvenile Fillies. And then Candied was trying to get ready for the Kentucky Oaks this year, and she kept getting backed up. She was another one who had like little physical issues that kept backing her starting point up. And so she was only able to make it to the Ashland. And she didn't really run poorly in the Ashland. She bobbled a little bit. She was sort of towards the back early on, and she moved. It just wasn't like a winning type race. She took a big step forward in that Lady Secret. What was nice there is she did beat older horses in that race. She beat a horse named Honor D Lady. And I liked seeing in the small field, she was able to stay in striking range, but that field, like, they just weren't as fast early on. Like, I like this horse a lot, and I want to make a case for her. I really do, because I followed her along. I just don't know if she can stay close enough in this small field with Torpedo Anna. Like, she just, looking at the Timeform US pace projector, she's like, they have Torpedo Anna lengths ahead of Leslie's Rose. Now, I think because of intent and jockey switch with Johnny V aboard, I'm at least convinced that they're going to try to get Leslie's Rose in front of Torpedo Anna.
That would be the best thing tactically to do, is try to get in front of her and control the pace and kind of make her back off.
But the problem is, like, we
still
saw,
might not be enough.
Like, she sat second last time out fine.
Yeah.
Like, she was fine sitting second. She's done it before. I mean, last year, she wasn't even really a speed need the lead type horse. She just has a really high cruising speed. So really, really quality filly. And if she wins this, most likely she'll be headed to the Travers, because Mystic Dan is going to be off for a little while now. They are going to be pointing to some other races, looks like a little bit later on in the year. So if we see her run well here, maybe shows up in the Travers against the boys. Torpedo Anna, so sharp, improving in each of her races. And I mean, it just, the things that you would want to knock on her, it's just hard to. Like, she has a tactical advantage on the group. She's proven at Saratoga. She's proven at a mile and an 8. She has no problem sitting off. I do think these are good horses. There are 4 graded stakes winners in this field of 5 and 3 grade 1 winners. But right now, at this time, Torpedo Anna is just in fantastic form. Let's close this thing out, my friend. Let's get to race number 12, 1.5 miles on the inner turf course here. And as you kind of expect with some of these longer races, I mean, it's just going to come down to, like, what's the pace look like? Are you going to have some of these horses stretching out, showing a little bit of speed? I think because of that, I probably want to throw the 8 or the 3 in. Just,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, there's not a lot of other proven speed in here. This is a horse who's run some good races, going a little bit shorter. And now he'll probably be able to get to cruise out on the front end. He's a first-time gelding here. So he's definitely a pick 4, pick 5 horse for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to end up being second choice, though, in this spot. I mean, you really couldn't bet De La Cruz down come from the 10 hole. You know, that's tough to do on the inner dirt course or inner turf course. So I would think our Tempest would be second choice in this spot, especially given the speed and the pace scenario. Another horse that I kind of want to give a shot to is the 6 Vintage Vino. I think this horse might have a step up, getting blinkers, second time Lasix. I think that's a good combination, even though first time blinkers isn't all that great of an angle for Linda Rice, but blinkers on is. So We'll see. This is a tough race, because we don't really run these kind of races too often, especially for maidens. You can get any kind of result here. This is
Yeah.
this is a tough race.
I think the 6 is very playable too, with the blinkers coming on and just hoping they
Hmm.
can get this horse just a little more involved early, because he does show some good late energy in both of the races, and in particular the June 22nd race where the horse was able to win a photo for 4th that day. So maybe they could just get him a little more focused with the blinkers coming on. Factor analysis, the entry for Brown, obviously going to be really logical. This is a horse who's been your favorite in 3 of 4 starts and has been the beaten favorite in all of those races and has hit the board in all 4. It's been second 3 times. Like, we don't have to tell you anything about factor analysis other than he'll be the one to beat. But once you get to the point of like 3 or 4 of these races, you start wondering sometimes, is it more the horse itself than some of the other circumstances? Sometimes these horses don't mind settling for minor awards and kind of find ways to get beat. I'm not saying that's the case yet with factor analysis, but we're starting to get close to wondering if, okay, this is a horse that just is fine settling for minors. But the speed figures are still improving, and distance wise, like, he's tough to knock in here. He's just not fast early, so that could put him behind the 8 ball in here.
Yeah. It's just a rough race, man. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, horses like that can overcome pace scenarios because it's a maiden race. But this horse has four runs at it, and kind of ran the same race every time. I don't see any kind of improvement on the horizon. I mean, not that it couldn't happen, but if you look up and down this field, you have a horse in the 2, Thielen. It's $1 million horse. 1.7 million they paid for this horse,
Yep.
and this is his 3rd start. I mean, would it really surprise you if a horse like that just reverses form and wins?
Only his second
Probably
start on the
not.
turf. This horse's
Right.
dam was a very nice filly. She was a grade 1 winner on the dirt. Just didn't have a whole lot of turf success. But there's some turf in the pedigree also, with Gilded Age, the sibling, being a turf winner. That one wouldn't shock me at all. A horse like the Jackal, I just wish there was a race under his belt, because I think he going a mile and a half will be fine. But the problem, we haven't seen the Jackal,
Yeah.
so is he going to be able to go a mile and a half when he hasn't run since the end of October last year? His form would fit really well with this group. I love that he went a mile and a half at Kentucky. Like, that's a tough track to go that type of a distance at, and ran well that day. But is he going to be ready to fire going a
Yeah.
mile and a half?
That's what I mean. This is a free for all race. I
You know
mean,
who I might
it
throw in just as in a pick 4 or pick 5, because we're talking about the speed, is the 9.
9.
Because I
Yeah, I
don't
was
think
gonna
the
say that
9
one.
is good enough. Like, if we're talking about sitting and passing horses and going long and stuff, okay, you probably wouldn't look at the 9. But if this horse was just aggressively handled by Santana and caught a flyer out front, and then everybody else kind of sits back behind him, or maybe he's sitting second right behind the 3 and could
Well,
fall into a trip.
look at the company he's been keeping. That was really the key. I kind of
Right.
like this horse too.
Yeah.
In a jam
Cugino
is
in a
a
jam.
pretty decent horse. Cugino is a very good horse.
Those are all like
Breeze
great.
is a good horse.
Yeah. These horses would have been competitive in the stakes race, the Lake
Mhm.
George.
Yes.
Those are all those types of horses there. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm warming up a little bit more to 4 Top, just because those races at first glance, they don't look as good. But then you look at the company that they were able to keep. I mean, this race alone had 4 next out winners, within a jam, who came back and is a stakes winner. Oscar's World, who came back to win. We saw just recently win at Ellis Park also. Harton was in there, and then Rapture Bay, who was the 5th place finisher. So,
Well, if you're a believer in that vesting race, you just kind of have to go with the 1 and the 10.
Yeah,
But I'm not too sure on that
me
race.
neither.
And this is the most competitive, track in the US. So I don't think they're just going to get the run of the race here.
And when you think about the way you're putting your ticket together too, this matters, right? Because if
Absolutely.
you're going to be playing Torpedo Anna maybe and singling, or you're shortening up and just using 1 or 2 in that race, the race before that, maybe you're shortening up and using some of the shorter prices. You're not just going to go chalk all the way through. This might be a race where you're looking to beat the favorite and you're chucking that one out and you're throwing in a few others. So if that's the case, these are the horses like for top you're looking for. You're looking for horses.
6.
Yeah, like the 6 Vintage Vino. You're looking for horses like the 3 or Tempest, who will be
2.
forwardly placed. Yeah, the 2 Thielen, who could take a big step forward, beautifully bred. The 2 who that was the thing that Chris Berman used to do on his little his hooked on a Thielen. I'm hooked on a Thielen. Adam hooked on a Thielen. As we finish up here, I just started recently. Crazy how time flies. My NFL team previews, because we're like 7 weeks away from the NFL season.
Oh man!
So each week I'm previewing one of the divisions. Just started with the NFC South last week. We're going to do the AFC West coming up this week. So man, time flies. We got the Olympics just starting up right now. Watching some basketball in the morning. Shout out AD, looking like a monster out there, blocking shots, doing his biz. Barry, my man. We have a lot of racing to talk about in the coming weeks. The next 6 weeks are going to be a blast between now and right around Labor Day. We'll be talking so much Saratoga. Del Mar will be jumping in the mix. And as I pointed out this weekend, big races also at Monmouth Park and at Woodbine. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Throw a like up on there. It helps it get shared around and more people see the videos. And Barry, anything you want to mention before we get out of here, my friend?
Nope. Just have some fun, cash some tickets. Maybe we hook some up for some people.
That's the key. We're just trying to lead you in the right direction. Hopefully we can steer you to a few winners here and there. We'll be back to talk some Del Mar. We're going to record that one on Thursday afternoon. So we'll talk a little bit about the Del Mar opening day card for Saturday on Thursday. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Wish you the best of luck this weekend. Make sure to head to shop.drf.com and visit that Saratoga handicapping store for every racing day.